Hey guys, and welcome back. I am super stressed out today, but I really enjoy making these videos, so I thought, why not film one today? Today we are working on our scene select in the visual novel project. So we're going to make a scrollable list of scenes just to get some things set up. So to do that, first, right-click on the hierarchy, go to UI, and we're going to make a canvas. So this canvas, this space, is equivalent to this game space. So your tabs might look different than mine, but if you click on game, each of these four corners corresponds to this. Now, if we make this smaller, you'll notice this gets smaller because our game screen got smaller. All right, so that's something to keep in mind, is that your game's display might change sizes on screen, so you try to make everything dynamically resizable as much as possible. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is our workspace, this is our canvas. Now we're going to right click on the canvas and let's see, what do we need now? We're actually going to make, that's right, an empty object. So an empty object, it has no properties. That's basically what it means. You can see that it has a position and it has a width and a height, but it's invisible. Go to your game, it's invisible. It doesn't do anything. So we have to give it some properties. Let's first give it a name. This will be our, what should we call it? Scene select view. There. And add, I already have it up here, click add component in the inspector and search for scroll rect. Now this is defining it as, so this rectangle is scrollable, but we want a bigger area to be scrollable. Not the whole screen, but if you go to this tool, with the four dots, this is the rectangle transform tool. So just drag the edges till you get a rectangle like this. Because we don't want the whole screen to be scrollable. Think of like, I don't know, think of other game level selects or even DVD scene selects back when, I don't know, I don't use DVDs anymore, but and one important thing with this, you can see that when we're resizing it, like this and this, it keeps getting kind of wonky. So what I meant by dynamically resizing, see these triangles? We want to pin these triangles here so that when we resize it, it is anchored to it. See? And we're just going to have this extend a little bit further, and you'll see why in a sec. So just extend it off the page horizontally. Now up here is going to be our title, so let's just do that now. So right click on the canvas and go to UI, make text. So first, before we move it, we're going to go to the inspector and rename it. So let's call it, or not rename it, give it a new body. So let's say scene select for the body. We won't worry about styling too much, but click best fit. And right now our game has a blue background, which we can change later to an image. Let's make the text white so that it's easier to see. So if we go to our game, it just is white text in the center. Now go over here to these arrows in the corner and move it up so that it's like above the panel like a title. And now we're going to rename this because it gets confusing if we have a lot of text. So let's rename it to scene select title. And now we are going to click on our view again, right click, UI, and let's see, what do we want here? We want a panel. So you can see that the panel's covering most of it. And so go back to the rectangle tool up here and have this extend even further past our scene select view. And you can use the hand tool to look at it. Okay, that looks okay for now. So you might notice that this is where all of our content is going to go. So the way this will work is we might have scene 1 here, and then we'll place scene 2 over here. Now let's just test. Oh wait, before we test, we need to actually enable the scrolling. So in order to do that, go to our scene select view and click on the panel, or don't click on it, but click and drag it to this area that says content below scroll rect. So drag it in here and you'll notice content is now the panel. So now we can test if it works. Let's put something in the panel. Let's just put text before we get too fancy. So go right click on it, go to UI, make a text box. We'll just say hello. And let's just make it white so it's easier to see. And maybe best fit to make it a bit bigger. And we'll place it over here. So this is a hidden area. This is what our game screen sees nothing. This is a hidden area. We'll see if our scrolling works. I know I'm forgetting some. Here. Okay, but before we do that, sorry, as I said, I'm improvising all of this. So bear with my thought process. So we want to go to our view and we want to change how we scroll a little bit. So I think we want our deceleration a little bit slower, but we can tweak it. So let's just say 0.01, make it like a lot slower. And then uncheck vertical. We only want horizontal checked because we're scrolling horizontally. Okay. Now I think we're actually good. So let's press play. Remember to press play, go to your game screen, and it works. So yeah, this might be a problem from dragging right. I think it's probably fine. But you can see we're scrolling until we kind of hit the end. But all right, so now that we know that the scrolling works, let's delete this text. So you can just select it and press delete on your keyboard. And we want an image, either a clickable image or a button. I'm thinking a button with an image on top. All right. So let's add, so go to your panel, right click, and we're going to add an image. So I believe that's under UI. Yep. And now go to the moving tool, the arrows, and we want to add an image. Let's just use, I don't know, it doesn't matter what we use right now. So does this show up in here? Yeah, so this is fine. This can be a replacement for when we make actual previews of our scene, since I'm not sure where the story or anything is going to go with this. We'll see how far we get in this project. It's kind of exciting. So okay, this is about what we'd want it to look like. We have an image here and we'll add a button right below it. So click the panel again, go to UI, button, move the button over so that it's sitting under your scene. And now let's rename the image. We're going to rename it to Scene 1 Image. Try to make descriptive names. It just makes everything so much easier. In fact, I should probably rename canvas and panel. Right now it's not too confusing, but always rename your buttons. And this goes for code too. Always name your variables something that makes sense. Don't just do A or B or X or Y. It sounds like a small, simple tip, but organizing your code makes everything better. So we're going to call this button Scene 1 button as well. And the text is going to be, we'll just say scene 1. I don't think we need to say play scene 1. I think that's kind of implied. So then click best fit again, because that dynamically resizes the text. And now, just as we did with the menu, we can add an on-click function to make it go to scene 1. But for now, let's just make one more scene to put in our scrolling box. So what we can do, you can just copy, Control-C, and paste. And you'll get one exactly like it on top. So then just take these arrows and move it over. We can figure out precise spacing later. We want it to look about even to that one. So this looks good. And then scene 1 button, copy paste, move over. Now we want to change all these names. So rename to scene 2 image, rename to scene 2 button, change the text of the button to scene 2. And if we had an image, we'd want to change the image to our preview of scene 2. But for now, this looks good. Let's test it. So press play, go to our game. You can see here our button, our image, and this is how we'd go. And so we just extend the panel more, and we'd add as many scenes as we need. So at this point, you can just copy paste what you've already done. You've done most of the work necessary already. And so let's add a script to make our button do something. We did this last time, but let's do it again. So I made a new scene, and I'm going to immediately save and call this scene 1. So next time, we are going to actually work on these scenes and making our system that keeps track of dialogue and characters. So definitely create this now, but go back to scene select and let's see, load scene select button. So this was the script we made last time, and now we want to make a new script. And so we should organize these soon. Actually, we're going to organize our assets right after this because I think that's pretty important. So we're going to create a new C# script. So right click, create C# script, and what should we call this? Now I realize that this is probably a misleading name. We're going to say our new script is called scene buttons. Alright, so we're going to open up scene buttons and we get a new script. Oops, this is a mistake from before. Make sure your class says public class scene buttons. We start out with this again, and we're going to make another public void load scene, parentheses and brackets. I'm not going to change the other brackets this time, but it's important to make it public because otherwise our on-click in the inspector won't recognize it. So there's a number of ways we can do it. We want to make it so that we could use this script on every button, no matter what level it is. We don't want to make a new script saying, like the level 1 button loads level 1, the level 2 loads level 2. We don't want to make an individual script for each case. We want to make it apply to all cases. So let's just write out the steps we want. We want to probably look at button name, get the numbers from the button name, because the only numbers are going to be the level numbers, and then load scene plus those numbers. So this is where naming conventions are super important. So we just called our scene scene 1. And we want to keep up that naming convention by having scene 2, oops, let's make that comment, scene 2, scene 3. That way, if we have button 1, button 2, button 2 can always correspond to scene 2 because we just extract the number and tack scene on the beginning. All right, so we're going to say, so declare string button name equals you know what? So what we need is we need to get the button name of what was just clicked. So when we have the script here, we're going to add this script to the button so that on click it does this. So we want to have it get the button name, meaning I think this will work to just say this dot name. So it's saying, so a string is a bunch of letters. Like this is a string that says hello. And we're going to call it button name, and we're going to have this button's name. That's all that means. Now, to get the numbers from it, I'm going to use something called regular expressions. So give me one moment. All right, I'm back. So this is what we have to do. Now let's make a new string and call it button number and write this. So what this is telling us, this red text, is that there's an error. So we need to add to our list of headers system.text.regular expressions. Okay. So you need to add that. Now this went away. This was from sample code I found. I apologize. But erase this and just say button name. Now there's a more elegant way to do this, but I'm just doing this for the sake of teaching. Now what we want is we'll have an int, which is an integer, or for now you can think of it as a number. We'll call this level number, and we'll say button number, no, int.parse, I believe. Yeah. So this will parse a string into an integer. So we will parse our button number. And so now we should have our level number. So we've done these two steps. Now we just have to load the scene. So let's print this out just to see what we're actually working with. So this is how you print in C# and Unity, debug.log. And printing, if you're new to programming, it means that you're just going to write a value on the console. It's just that you can check. I'm not 100% sure if this will work yet, so let's just add this to the button and see. So we'll have scene 1 button, click on it, go down, on click, add one. So first we want to add components. So drag scene buttons, our script we just made, down here. So now it has that script. Then go back to on click on the circle, and scene 1 button. Now we want to go to scene buttons and look for the function we just made, load scene. And all this should do is when we click on it, it'll print the number it got to the console. Alright, so we're playing, we click. Okay, it got 1. So this code actually worked. That's great. Let's make sure it's getting the right value every time. Let's add it to number 2. And scene 2 button. Actually, you know what? A better way to do this might be, alright, So do this instead. We're going to change things around a bit. Once again, showing the thought process. So we're going to create an empty object again, and we're just going to rename it load scene. And then we're going to put our scene button script as a component, because every time we want to do an on click, we'd have to add the script to the button, and that's just redundant. So change this to, aha, there it is, load scene, and then do the exact same thing again. This will do the same thing, it's just that we don't want to add this script every single time. And do the same here, find load scene, scene buttons, load scene. Okay, awesome. Let's see if it works on scene 2. So scroll over and click. Ooh, see, there's an error here. So the input string was not the correct format. So that could mean a lot of things. Mostly it means that whatever this returned was probably not just a number. So now this is a good time to learn what's called the debugger. So printing is actually, it can be pretty inefficient. So we're going to set a breakpoint. So click here so that there's a red dot. Now click the play button up here. So using your debugger is a really powerful thing. So click play here and then click play on your game. And then clear any errors so that we don't get confused. And we're going to scroll and try clicking again. Now see how this flashes? So click on it and let's see what's up. So we look at our locals and then we use this to step down. So for now, press step over and we can see the button name was load scene. Oh, okay. So now I see what this is doing. In our script, because I changed it so that it would be attached to one object, it messed it up. So because I called it this dot name. Oh. So there's another way we can solve this. Now see, that's where I didn't realize that mistake. And now I'm thinking maybe it's better to be more redundant for the sake of correctness for now. So press stop on that, press play on this to stop this, and I apologize. This was not the right way to do things. So just for the sake of correctness for now, and this will happen a lot in your own code as you start doing your own projects, that you'll realize, oh, I found a better way to do something, and then it just doesn't work. And that's why I wanted to make a video like this to show like an actual thought process and not just this perfect tutorial that just works. So I'm changing it back to the way I showed you before. I'm adding the script to it. So scene buttons are added to each button. And, there probably is a better way to do this too, but this is just my thought process as we're sketching out our game. So each one is now pointing to the scene buttons object in its own class. So let's try this again. Let's just keep the breakpoint so that we can look at what's going on. So press play. You can also press play after you've already you can press play on the debugger after you've already done it in Unity. So let's scroll to scene 2 again, just for the heck of it. And we can look at our values. So step over. Okay, now it got the actual button name. And it got the number is 2, and the level number is 2. So that looks pretty promising. Okay, now it's doing some funky stuff. If it starts doing funky stuff, you can just press play and it'll continue on until the next breakpoint or until it just stops. So it just stopped right now. And let's try scene 1, test that. testing is so important in code. Some people think it's pretty boring, but it's so necessary. So, okay, so all of our values are correct, so I think it's safe to link these to our levels. So similar to before, we are now going to say application.load level, and we can actually use its name. So we called our scene scene 1, so let's do scene plus level number, and just to be safe, we'll just say level number dot toString. So what's going on here is that we're saying the string scene is combined with the number we just calculated. And the toString is just the stringified version of that number, just so that we make sure that it's getting a string as an input. Now, before we can test that out, we have to go back to our scene. I forgot to do this earlier. So open, go to scene 1, and we need to go File, Build Settings. So add this to our build settings. Now you can see it'll get difficult to keep track of each one, like 0, 1, 2, when we want to call load level. So that's why it's really nice that we can algorithmically figure out which scene to go to. So this will go to any scene with any button number. All right, so let's test this out. Go back to our scene select, press play, and scene 2 will be broken, so don't click on that yet, but if we click on scene 1, it took us to scene 1, which is a blank screen right now. But yeah, so it looks like our scene select is essentially done. It's just a matter of adding things. I'm really excited about this series. I hope that watching me go through my thought process is helpful. I hope it's not too annoying. I really want to go more into detail about debugging and testing because so many tutorials are just so well executed that you don't really feel like you get how to problem solve by yourself. So anyway, I feel a lot less stressed now. It's pretty nice to just talk through stuff like this, and I really hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Alright, I'll be sure to have the next part soon. We'll actually start building our level. I'll see you next time.